I don't think America's next monetary system is going to arrive with any kind of an announcement. I think we're going to upgrade into it, if that makes sense. Piece by piece. A stable coin law, a digital asset classification system, tokenized stocks, tokenized treasuries, programmable assets, digital identity, automated compliance. Every piece introduced for a perfectly reasonable reason. Every piece potentially useful. And then one day, we may look around and realize the financial system isn't the system we used to have. It's software. And once money becomes software, I have a question. Who gets administrator privileges? Last year, the United States passed something called the Genius Act. And despite sounding like legislation written for Tony Stark, it's very real. It created America's first federal regulatory framework for payment stablecoins. Stablecoins are essentially digital coins designed to maintain stable value, usually $1. And this is where something clicked for me. For years, people have been arguing about a government-controlled digital dollar, a CBDC. Would the Federal Reserve create one? Would Americans accept it? Would it threaten financial privacy? But what if we've been watching the wrong thing? What if the government doesn't actually need to issue the digital dollar? Private companies can issue regulated dollar-backed stable coins. Government creates the legal framework. Financial institutions provide the infrastructure. And the dollar becomes increasingly digital without somebody ever announcing, "Welcome to the new monetary system." And that's only the first piece. Because underneath American financial markets sits an organization most people probably never heard of, DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Its depository subsidiary of DTC currently provides custody and asset servicing for securities valued at more than 114 trillion. Not billion, trillion. And DTCC has bought together more than 50 financial firms to help develop its tokenization service. Like BlackRock, of course, Bank of America, Citi, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Charles Schwab, HSBC, Circle, Franklin Templeton, and many others. This isn't some crypto startup trying to reinvent Wall Street from a garage. This is the plumbing of Wall Street. And in July, DTCC moved beyond theory. It successfully processed real production trades using DTC, tokenized assets. The service is currently planned for launch in October. And here's where this gets really interesting. The SEC has allowed DTC to operate a preliminary 3-year tokenization program involving certain traditional securities. We're talking about assets connected to Russell 1000, major index ETFs, U.S. Treasury bills, Treasury notes, Treasury bonds, traditional financial assets. Moving on to tokenized infrastructure. And at that international level, the Bank of International Settlements has been openly discussing what it calls a next generation monetary financial system. Tokenized money, tokenized financial assets, programmable platforms, smart contracts, systems capable of connecting money and assets and executing transactions automatically. So I'm not predicting that money might become programmable someday. The financial world is already building programmable financial infrastructure. The question, what happens when it scales? Now, let me make the strongest argument for this because it's a good one. Our existing financial system is ancient by technological standards. It is. It's fragmented, expensive, slow. Institutions maintain separate records. Transactions need reconciliation. Markets operate on schedules. Settlements take time. Cross-border payments can be ridiculous. Collateral can sit in one place while somebody needs it somewhere else. Tokenization potentially changes that. Near instant settlement, 24-hour markets, automated contracts, better movement of collateral, lower costs, fewer intermediaries, less reconciliation, potentially less fraud. And honestly, if I were designing a financial system from scratch today, I'd probably use some of this technology too. And that's exactly why I think it's coming. Not because somebody necessarily has to force it on us, because it works. The efficiency argument isn't what worries me. The efficiency argument may be completely true. Quick interruption. If you're enjoying this kind of conversation, subscribe to Signal Shift. Because here's something slightly ironic. I've built a pretty substantial catalog on this channel now. And lately I've started wondering whether I'm being algorithmically gatekept? Well, potentially. I can't prove that. And considering yesterday we were talking about communism, and today we're talking about programmable money, I realize I'm not exactly feeding the algorithm cat videos. But I can tell you this. Liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing tells the little machine that actual humans want these conversations. So if you do, give the machine a little nudge for me. Okay, back down the rabbit hole. Because what interests me isn't just what this technology makes more efficient. It's what else the architecture makes possible. Software follows rules, and somebody writes those rules. Money operating on programmable infrastructure can potentially interact with your identity, compliance, permissions, restrictions, automated contracts, geography, taxation, sanctions, fraud systems, and rules we haven't even invented yet. And here's where I'm going to give you my opinion. I do not believe we're going to build enormously powerful financial infrastructure capable of doing far more than existing system, and then collectively decide never to use those capabilities. Maybe I'm wrong, but history does not make me particularly optimistic about powerful capabilities remaining unused forever. Corporations have incentives: profit, efficiency, of course, data, risk reduction. Market share. Governments have incentives. Tax collection. Law enforcement. Sanctions. National security. Financial stability. Compliance. Those interests don't require some secret meeting. They just have to overlap. And increasingly, they do. Which brings me back to my last video. We talked about why communism has suddenly returned to the American conversation. And everybody immediately gets dragged into the same 20th century fight. Capitalism, communism, Marx, markets, government, private ownership. But I think we may be obsessing over the ideology, while something much more consequential is happening to the architecture. Because one of the great fears surrounding 20th century authoritarian states was centralized control. Control over information, property, economic participation, movement, the individual. Those governments built enormous bureaucracies trying to accomplish it. Paper files, informants, checkpoints, records, human surveillance. Stalin could only have dreamed of technological capabilities humanity possesses today. And Orwell's 1984 almost seems technologically quaint. Because Big Brother had to install the telescreen. We bought ours. We carry smartphones that know where we are. We put cameras on our houses, microphones in our homes, biometrics in our devices, location systems in our cars. We've voluntarily uploaded enormous portions of our lives into databases. And increasingly, artificial intelligence can process quantities of that information no human bureaucracy ever could. Now, imagine increasingly programmable financial infrastructure joining that ecosystem. I'm not saying America is Stalinist. Obviously. I'm saying something I think is considerably more important. Technology is ideology neutral. Capitalism can build it. Communism can use it. Democracies can regulate through it. Authoritarian governments can weaponize it. Corporations can monetize it. The infrastructure doesn't care what flag is flying over the building. It only cares what it's capable of doing. And that's why I think everyone's screaming at each other about capitalism versus communism, maybe having the wrong argument. We're fighting a 20th century ideology war, while 21st century power is being built underneath both sides. Maybe the real question isn't capitalism over communism. Maybe it's how much control should any institution, public or private, have over an individual's economic life? Because there are 3 technological developments I keep watching. Money becoming programmable, identity becoming digital, and the physical and digital world becoming increasingly observable. None of those systems needs to have been created for authoritarian processes. That's almost besides the point. The question is what happens when they can communicate money, identity, observation. Connect those three, and you have capabilities no 20th century government possessed at that scale. And I don't think we should wait until somebody abuses that architecture before we're deciding what limits should be, I don't know. People hear this argument and immediately imagine some government bureaucracy deciding whether they're allowed to buy a cheeseburger. I actually think that's the cartoon version. Modern control is usually much more boring. Terms of service, compliance requirement, risk score, identity verification, transaction declined, account restricted, access denied, all administrative, all automated, all potentially justified, maybe individually, and collectively extraordinarily powerful. That's the part I think Orwell couldn't fully anticipate. The most sophisticated systems of observation and control may not have to be forced onto a population. They can be useful, convenient, profitable, efficient. People may ask for them. And I want to be very clear about something. I'm not telling you I've discovered some secret master plan. I haven't. I'm looking at infrastructure that is publicly being built and telling you where I think it can lead. That's a prediction, and I'm willing to put my name on it. I think programmable financial infrastructure will eventually be used for substantially more than faster settlement, for enforcement, compliance, taxation, sanctions, identity verification, access control, and probably purposes neither you nor I can predict today, because that's what infrastructure does. It's used, commands, expands. Maybe we'll establish extraordinary protections around it. I hope we do. Maybe tokenization makes markets dramatically better. I hope it does. But useful and dangerous aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same technology. And this is what I want Signal Shift to keep looking for. Not the political label everybody is screaming about. The architecture underneath it. Because while everybody argues over who should run the system, I want to know what the system itself is becoming. And right now, money is becoming software. Assets are becoming software. Identity is becoming data. And enormous parts of human behavior are becoming machine readable. Maybe those things remain largely separate. I don't think they will. And if they converge, the question won't simply be, who owns the money? It'll be, who writes the rules the money follows? Because the next monetary system probably won't arrive through revolution. It won't need tanks. It won't need some dramatic announcement. It may arrive with lower fees, faster settlement, better fraud protection, seamless identity verification, and a little button that says, update now. Everyone else can argue about the ideology I'm watching the architecture. And if that's the kind of conversation you've been looking for, subscribe to Signal Shift. Apparently, we may need to find each other manually. Because if money becomes software, I still want to know, who gets administrator privileges? See you tomorrow, guys.